What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best Erasing Strike Void Knight build in Last Epoch Season 3. This is a high damage melee setup that is built around deleting enemies from the existence with just one swing. So in this guide I will start with a quick overview of how the build works, then we will go over the skill tree, then explain the passives and why we so heavily invest into the Void Knight tree. Then I will show you the gear and uniques that make it tick. Then we'll cover idols, blessings, and finally wrap up with the gameplay and rotation, so you can maximize both the clear speed and bossing. Also, if you're interested in buying other PC or console games with 50 or 70% discount, then check out Instant Gaming. For example, I want to buy Elden Ring, so we just click on Add to Cart, then click Pay, then input our details and pay. After payment is complete, we will receive activation key, then copy and paste the key in, and it's that simple. So what are you waiting for? Click my link description and check out Instant Gaming for yourself. This Erasing Strike Void Knight build is a melee powerhouse that combines massive single target damage with strong AoE clear. Erasing Strike itself is a high cost, high rewarding ability, and normally you would only be able to cast it occasionally, but thanks to the Void Well and the stacking mana, you can spam it freely as your primary damage skill. Every swing obliterates enemies by creating an endless chain of annihilation across the map. To support it, we run Devouring Orb, which will automatically trigger with the Void Essences for sustain and the background damage. Then we got Anomaly for a moving buff bubble and the Void Shred, then Symbols of Hope for the constant utility and defenses, then Healing Hands, which not only buff and sustain you but also double as your movement skill. The one unique you absolutely must have is the World Splitter, which defines the build, and on top of that items like the Siphon of the Anguish, Shattered Chains, Anchor of Oblivion and the Nihils will push your scaling to ridiculous levels. Overall, this is not just another melee build, but this is one of the hardest hitting single target setups in the entire game. Let's start with the skills, and first of all everything revolves around the Erasing Strike. This ability has one of the highest base mana costs of any melee skill, but with Void Well passive, restoring mana based on your maximum pull, it turns into a spammable nuke. First, we remove its cooldown with a Shattered Continuity, so you can swing repeatedly instead of waiting for the reset. Then we scale its raw power with a node like the Chamber of the Fate for multiplicative damage, and then even the final hour for the crit synergy and obliteration. Next is the Devouring Orb. You don't need to press the skill yourself, it's triggered automatically while moving thanks to the Abyssal Rush. With the Abyssal Juggernaut, it becomes a constant source of Void Essence, which feeds back into the Void Well passive for the mana sustain. Then we got Anomaly. This creates a time bubble that follows you with the Time Lord, by buffing attack speed, damage and survivability. With Decimation and Manipulation, it ramps up your offense even higher. And whenever you slam it into a boss, you also apply the Mark of the Rod, which reduces enemy resistances and makes your Erasing Strike hit like a truck. Then we got Symbols of the Hope, which is another background skill. Thanks to the tetragram, you will summon multiple symbols at once, and they will provide buffs like resistances, damage increases and utility. Nodes like the Symbol of Despair, Heavenly Justice and the Iron Sigils will make them incredibly efficient, so you're basically walking around with a free permanent buff. And finally we've come to the Healing Hands, which makes the build really unique. Normally it's a spell cast healing, but with the Cleric's Hammer and the Seraph Blade, we convert it into a melee ability that triggers alongside the Erasing Strike. This not only provides healing and sustain, but it becomes an additional hit that synergizes with all of your melee multipliers. The Halted Courage and Turn Undead will grant the damage reduction, while the Rache's Chariot will turn into your primary mobility tool. Now let's go into the passives, and we start with around 20 points into the base Sentinel tree, for fundamentals like the armor, health and resistances. Then the bulk of our investment, which is almost 80 points, goes into the Void Knight. The defining note here is the Void Well, which absolutely is mandatory. It restores a percentage of your maximum mana every few seconds, as long as you're generating the Void Essences. Without this, you simply can't sustain Erasing Strike, and once you've got it, the higher your mana pool, the more Erasing Strikes you can chain without interruption. Then beyond the Void Well, we invest into the increased Void damage, intelligence and leech, and even cooldown recovery. All of these will feed into the fast-paced loop of spamming Erasing Strike while staying alive. Echo Knight passives will also come into play by giving echoes of your abilities while moving and attacking, or the perfect synergy with a constant motion of the build. We also skip the Avatar of the Regret because its downside of the higher mana cost and reduced attack speed will counter the ways we are scaling it. And lastly, we pick up about 15 points into the Paladin for additional defenses and utility, but we ignored Forge Guard since it doesn't add any meaningful bonuses here. If you're missing a certain unique like the Siphon of the Anguish, then you can also spec into the World Eater for the added leech to keep sustain smooth. Overall, the passive setup is about enabling mana sustain and then layering in both the damage multipliers and survivability. Next up we have gear, and this is the place where the build really shines, and the number one priority is stacking mana. The more mana you have, the more Void Well restores, and the more uninterrupted Erasing Strikes you can throw out. You want mana on your amulet, relics, gloves, helmet and the body armor. Crafting a Leonite Great Helm with a tier 8 mana using Rune of Evolution is one of the best upgrades that you can make. For the weapon, go with the World Splitter. This is the defining weapon of our build, by providing massive void melee damage, mana scaling, crit multiplier and a flat crit chance based on mana cost. Erasing Strike costs 30 mana, so a perfectly rolled World Splitter that gives 9% flat melee crit chance will give plus 9% flat melee crit chance, on top of all the other bonuses. Your first priority should be crafting it into a legendary with tier 7 melee void damage, and if you got more legendary potential, then look for the Void Penetration, minion Void Penetration and increased void damage. Avoid too much attack speed on the weapon itself, because going too fast will make it too hard to sustain mana, and the build thrives on big, deliberate strikes rather than the speed spam. Then Shatter Chains will boost both the offense and defense, while the Anchor of Oblivion will cap endurance and add more survivability. Nihils is another powerful option for the mana scaling and the raw damage. And then lastly for boots, you can go with the Army of the Skin for pure damage, or go with the Dark Stride if you prefer speed farming. Next up we got idols, and you want to focus on ones that boost both your sustain and the damage. You want mana and health to keep your pull high, plus bonuses like increased melee void damage, crit chance and the void penetration. Idols that increase echo damage when a skill is echoed are particularly strong, since the Void Knight echoes will synergize perfectly with Erasing Strike. You should also chase idols with a chance to shred armor on a melee hit, as this is a massive damage increase at a high stacks. And then defensively, look for idols that provide armor, physical resistance, and additional health to keep you stable in the longer fights. Next up we got Blessings, and this is the final piece that brings the build together. The Grand Emptiness of Ash is your crit multiplier blessing, which makes every Erasing Strike hit much harder. Then the Grand Light of the Moon will add maximum mana, which directly scales both your sustain and the DPS. Then Grand Resolve of Humanity covers resistances, letting you free up epic space on the gear. Then Grand Bulwark of the Tundra will give bonus armor, while Grand Body of Obsidian adds even more, making you deceptively tanky for a damage-focused melee build. And together, these blessings will reinforce the core strengths, which is mana sustain, massive crit damage, and the layered defenses. And now finally, let's take a look at the gameplay. For farming, you want to use the Healing Hands with the Rakeish Chariot. Stay into the constant motion so that the Devouring Orb will automatically cast by feeding the Void Essences into your Void Well for sustain. As you move into the packs, spam the Erasing Strike to wipe everything in the sight. Each swing will delete enemies instantly, while the Healing Hands will give sustain and the extra hit layered on top of your melee. Then for bossing, rotation is similar but more precise. Start by hitting the boss with the Anomaly to apply Mark of the Rod. Then keep your time bubble active around you for a constant buff, and always stay moving so that the Devouring Orb keeps proccing. From there, it's all about chaining Erasing Strike, weaving in the Healing Hands for sustain, and using it as emergency dash to dodge the telegraph attacks. If you position well and manage your mana, then bosses will melt quickly, thanks to the insane single target scaling and the armor shred. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my previous top 7 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful setups. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.